At Lawrence University are sharing their reactions after Kirk's death, many hoping there's a way to bring people together for a constructive conversation. In a First Alert update, Jamal James speaks with those students about how they hope political debate can change.
For a lot of the students, like the ones just arriving to Lawrence University on Friday, there was a lot to think about when it comes to free speech, especially on campuses that encourage it.
I mean, Charlie Kirk is not a man I support or I stand by, but I don't think going after people for their political views is something that you should do.
Frederick Ventura saying it's hard to process everything, especially with reactions flooding social media. Sharing that same feeling with Dylan Keelan, another student here on campus.
I was very disappointed to see on, platforms like TikTok and X, people who celebrated that. I mean, like I said, obviously we don't always agree with each other, but you really shouldn't celebrate the death of somebody.
Students here at Lawrence University say that you shouldn't be attacked for having your own viewpoints, sharing what can be done to ease tension.
I do think that one thing politics needs is to go back to debating about politics and not always about character.
A disagreement is something that you will see in a debate. So it's like if you were coming to this expecting a debate, you should be expecting an opposite argument at the same time.
Kirk was killed on the first stop of his American Comeback campus tour and was expected to stop at 14 different colleges. In Appleton, Jamal James, Action 2 News.
We also received a statement from the school saying, quote, Lawrence University believes in the open exchange of ideas and encourages civil discourse with respect, empathy, and openness to opposing viewpoints. We may find ourselves differing at times by individual ideology, yet we remain united in our shared humanity to uphold the values of Lawrence University. We expect all members of our campus community to treat one another with dignity and respect, end quote.